My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was my connection to him. We would wake up, Walter Mercado on television telling us what's going to happen through the day, good luck, much peace, much love, and then at night you will go to bed with him too, telling you the same thing.
What does it take to get a more in-depth look into the week's top local news story? The Debrief brings you inside for a one-on-one conversation with our reporters. Every week, right here, right now. The Debrief.
We like to provide context and some insight on the Debrief, and there was a passing recently of a figure that was noted in the New York Times, the Washington Post, on our air, certainly on our sister station Telemundo, and his name was Walter Mercado. And some say, well, you know, if you didn't listen to Spanish language TV, you didn't know who he was, but I think you did, or I think you saw him once, and in case you didn't, we're going to talk about him because it resonated right here in the Tri-State. Hello, everyone. This is David Ushery, your host on the Debrief, and I'm joined by none other than Gaby Acevedo.
My pleasure, David.
A return visit.
My pleasure to be in your hall.
And full disclosure, here's what happened. Our VP of Digital, Ben Berkowitz, puts out a note that Walter Mercado was passed. This is a big story for the Puerto Rican community, and you followed up with that note, said it is indeed. And I happen to know it, just being aware, married to a Latina. So why don't we tell the world about Walter Mercado?
Well, Walter Mercado, and you mentioned Spanish-based television was the one that captivated the mystique of what he represented. But obviously, English speakers saw him because of his flamboyancy, the way he dressed, the way he portrayed himself on television. He used to be an actor, so he took that into his presentations. In essence, he was an astrologist, an astrologer who would predict the future or tell you the things you should do to get better luck. And that was very important for Puerto Ricans, especially, and we'll talk about that in an island that was very Catholic. It is very Catholic, but it's also very superstitious. He was born in the 1930s in Ponce, 1932 to be exact, Walter Mercado Salinas. Now, this is very important because he was born in an era that was very tumultuous. It was the era of the Ponce Massacre in 1937. It was the era of nationalism, and Ponce was the hotbed of that Puerto Rican nationalism. I think it shaped him in the way that he was very proud where he came from. I think any Ponce citizen, and people who know the south of the island know this, they're very proud to come from that background. And he was very proud where he came from. He always mentioned, I was very poor when I grew up. Because Ponce was the era of no streets, no roads, no pavements, no electricity, no water. That's where he was born. So he was always reminding us that I came from a place that was very poor, and through my effort, through my talent, I got to succeed in life like other Ponce citizens that were born there. So that
connected him to many, and
definitely
right there, throughout Latin America.
And especially in Puerto Rico, because people saw him as he's an honest guy.
So he starts out as an actor, and I read that he was asked, somebody didn't show up for a show, and the guy asked him to step into this role, and from there, he kind of developed this personality.
Basically, study of the stars. The study of the stars, the study of the palm of your hand, the study of mysticism. And this is very important, as I mentioned, David, because being Puerto Rican, you grow up as a Catholic or as a Christian 9 out of 10 cases. He was one of those cases. He was a Catholic, a Christian, but he combined the santeria, the mysticism, the spirituality of predicting the future, which is not Catholic, but he did it in a way that it didn't seem to offend anyone. I'll tell you through my grandma. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was my connection to him. We would wake up, Walter Mercado on television telling us what's going to happen through the day, good luck, much peace, much love, and then at night you will go to bed with him too, telling you the same thing.
And Gaby, my understanding is whenever he came on, everything had to stop.
Oh yeah,
until everyone,
especially that era, the grandmothers, especially that era, they listened to him because, like I said, he didn't offend the religious, spiritual part of Puerto Ricans. He enhanced it by saying, yes, you believe in God, we believe in religion, we believe in Virgin Mary, in Jesus Christ, but at the same time, this is the things you can do to get better luck, to have a better fortune in life. And he would give you those tips, and you had to listen carefully, because if you apply those tips, like you're gonna bathe in warm water twice today, and you're gonna put your hands inside the cold water at the afternoon, and you're gonna go to the beach and fall backwards twice into the salt water. And you had to listen to the instructions, because that meant that if you follow, your luck was gonna improve.
Let me ask you this, Gaby. So he had something like 1,500 capes. He was very flamboyant. One publication said, think the cultural impact of Oprah and Liberace. Why wasn't he met with more skepticism? Was he met with skepticism? I mean, we've seen memorials here now that lasted for a week. Some of this carried live. People posting all through social media, right here from the Tri-State, Was he met with skepticism? How did he go on to
I guess that some people maybe made fun of. I told you off camera that there was a colloquial saying, what do you think, you're Walter Mercado?
Right.
When you would think you were foretelling the future, people would say, what do you think, you're Walter? So he became kind of a colloquial figure, and there were people who were skeptics. I mean, I'm not going to say, you got to ask on a case-by-case basis. But
the love, the outpouring of love, I'm saying.
oh yeah, but underground, people would say would think he was honest, that he was sincere, and in some cases, people would say, I listened to Walter, and he was right about my fortune. So then that started to spread as a word of mouth kind of thing. That's how he started in the 60s and 70s. He was an actor before he became this figure that studied the stars.
It seemed there was still a message of positivity and uplift that
Hope.
he gave people. And
Hope. He gave them hope. So that was especially present, David, in New Year's Eve, because he would tell you what to wear, what to cook, what we were going to eat at night, so you would have a good 2020 if we were looking forward to next year. And what would you dress? What color was the color of this year? And he would dress in those flamboyant garments. And you would see him like kind of like a priest, like a priest from the church, but with Santeria elements. And it was, in television, it was very impactful, because you would know, oh, there's Walter. Look at all the colors and the brightness. But he would tell you, wear this, eat this, go to sleep at this time, and you will have a great year next year. And people would follow through with that. He had a big following. People maybe didn't want to admit that they listened to Walter, but when they listened to him on television, they would apply his instructions to the dot.
So we wanted to just explain in this edition of the podcast, for those who perhaps weren't familiar with him, why this made so many national publications, why it made the newscast, why it made our newscast. You were not surprised that his death got this attention.
I wasn't. I mean, in his heyday, during his peak years, he had the highest ratings. So that's why all the newscasts in Puerto Rico, all the channels would bid to hire Walter. We want Walter in our show, because the newscasts would end their shows saying, and now with Walter Mercado for the fortune telling. And that was a big segment of the night. So he was a great figure, but he was also a guy that gave you the opportunity to imagine a better future. And that was important for a lot of Puerto Ricans at one point, that things were going to get better. He would never go into negativity. He would predict gubernatorial races, politician races. Sometimes he would predict the winner.
Speaking of that, I understand that he weighed in on Governor Rosselló, which you were down there covering, the unrest that ultimately kind of pushed him from office. He actually called for him to step down.
He saw it in a mystical way. That goes back to Rosselló's father, Pedro Rosselló, who was the governor from 1993 to 2000. He was very close with Pedro Rosselló. Some say that Rosselló and his government would ask Walter, what do you think is going to happen with the referendums? When the years of the referendums for Puerto Rico statehood were happening, Walter would weigh in, well, we're not going to be a state soon, but the votes are going to go up. And they would ask him, what do you think? So he became sort of like a counselor and accessory to people who work in powerful places. Now, when Ricardo Rosselló, Pedro Rosselló's son, came into power, he was a friend of the family. He supported Rosselló's bid, obviously, as a governor back then. But things, when they got bad, I think he saw in a moment, okay, the island is in danger, so you need to step down for the betterment of the future of the island. And people took it as Walter said it. You have to step down because we're in danger right now. So whenever he said something, his words would weigh deep.
Okay. And Gaby, how did he typically end his presentation? What would he say?
Oh, it was a famous phrase.
Mucho, 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 mucho amor.
Con mucha paz y mucho amor, with a lot of peace and a lot of love. And that's something that people would say on the streets too, when you would say goodbye. Lots of peace and lots of love, brother. Because that was the Walter way. So again, it goes into the point that he wasn't a negative foreteller. There would be bad news. Life is full of bad news. But he would never tell you, this is going to be bad for you, be careful. He would say, things will happen, but you will bounce back, and this is how you can bounce back. He will give you a solution, a mystical solution of things you can do to, they say, despojo, to rid yourself of the bad luck that may be coming upon you, because bad luck is around the corner. He would always say that. But if you do this, cleanse yourself, your fortune is going to improve. And people would believe that. It gave people that optimism and hope that other people wouldn't, in an era where negativity started to sprout on Puerto Ricans, with the economy going down, with the situation, with the political upheaval. He was there to put calm at night and during the day. And people will start and finish their days with him.
So there you have it. Walter Mercado explaining Gaby explaining to us his presence and why he's getting so much attention this week. He died at 87 from renal failure. Con mucho paz, con mucho amor, my friend.
Así será, just said. David, thank you so much for the time.
I'm your host, David Ushery. We want to thank our producers, Jesse Edwards and Ben Berkowitz of the digital team, coming to you from our busy newsroom. We'll check you next time on The Debrief.